Okay, I've done a little bit more stitching here. I've added a few more of these thread beads with the frame, the Pearls of Wisdom, and I did switch. You know, I started doing black ones with a white frame. I like the variation there. And I clustered this one in 9 because I thought that was a nice grouping. I like the number. It's always just enough. Funny how the black ones now look sort of like eyes, which is appropriate. And then I moved up here and started adding some star figures and things like that. But before I talk about that, you know, I also colored in that sketch that I had. And I think what's happening to me here now is, as I move to the later part of my life, I started out on paper, you know, and I moved to cloth, you know. And I very often do sketches on paper, but now I think that I'm moving back to paper in some way. But I think from the experiences of my life, it's a little bit different. So now I'm looking at, you know, how we create image. All my work on cloth has taught me that it's a lot about layers. And of course, a lot of software that you find for photo and artwork also works in layers. But what's interesting here now is I've become so comfortable with the cloth that I tend to do things first here, even though or draw directly on the cloth. So now I'm going back and I'm thinking, okay, let me try to create a paper image that somehow relates to the process of creating the image on cloth. So, you know, even as an illustration, what I started to do here was, you know, I created this kind of star-like thing that I use very often. And I covered it with stitch that's very close to the color of the background, so that it kind of acts like a quilting or you know, a tacking stitch, but it's not that obvious. I love to fill empty space with things like this. And I also did it over here, but what happened over here was after I made that star-like thing, which I just did in pen initially, I started to look at these here. And I thought how this is sort of a dark version, this is sort of a light version, and how the 9 patch is sort of like that, you know. So you know, this thing creates kind of it's 4 lines, it creates kind of 8, and I thought, okay, if I add a center, it'll be 9. So I arranged the dark and light here in a 9 patch, which I really love because my stars are usually about wishing and kind of imagining how things could be. And the 9 is a very much a natural order to me. So I liked that I could take the different, the different Pearls of Wisdom arrangement and have them form then some kind of logic here. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm also going to frame these like I did on the bottom. But they form this beautiful center to this star pattern, which I love. And I'm going to continue now, I think, painting and drawing on this sketch to reflect what's going on here. So it's kind of an opposite situation, where normally I would sketch it out first here and then do it on the cloth. Now I'm rocking back and forth between cloth and paper, and I'm finding that to be an interesting process. And I'm also imagining that I may someday become a children's book illustrator.